Hello, my name is Max. Welcome to my channel. This is my first video ever. I am struggling to figure all of this stuff out and come up with a way of collecting my thoughts and share them with you. My topic is extremely hard and challenging. What I'm going to be talking about on this channel is actually you and ways that you can understand yourself and contemplative methods for looking inwards and trying to make sense of all of the things that are happening within you. This comes from an experience that I had which completely altered my life. It gave me a way of really looking in and understanding all of this, and so in this first video I'm just going to share that experience with you. The other day I just woke up, picked up the camera, started recording. So here it is. I hope you enjoy it. Hello. So I have something that I need to say. It's something that I've been building to for several years now, and so bear with me here for a second. About 7 years ago, you could call it a midlife, I suppose. Around that time, meditation entered my life and immediately started seeing results and seeing my stress levels decrease, and so it just stuck. The practice of meditation caused me to bring into my life a component of looking inwards rather than only looking outward to fill that void. The meditation has a natural tendency to cause one to soften and reflect and turn inwards. So meditation stuck. And for 4 years, we live in an information age and guided meditations, and there's a vast variety of them out there. I wouldn't identify myself as being religious. I would say that religion to me was something that I shied away from, because if I choose a religion, if I identify with a religion, I'm saying to the rest of the world that I am in a box that is separate from you, and therefore there is an inherent conflict in that. And to me, that just didn't sit right. 3 years ago, I had been specifically looking into heuristics for understanding self. Heuristics are shortcuts for understanding all through history. For example, 500 years before Christ, 400 or 500 years before Christ, the Buddha described the self as being a rider on an elephant. The rider being the rational mind, which thinks it's in control, yet it is atop this much more grand beast, and therefore actually has the greater control in the situation, right? So it's a divided model. You have two entities there. And what I didn't like about that is that it was a divided self. And to me, in the state that I was in, I was looking for something that helped me understand the thing that was going on within me in a more unified sense. Another example of divided self would be what Greek philosophers taught. Socrates, written by Plato, because Socrates didn't actually write anything down, Plato wrote that the self could be thought of as a charioteer, a controller of a chariot with 2 horses pulling the chariot. One horse represents the appetite within, and the other horse represents the spirit. And in Greek times, the spirit didn't have the same connotation that we have today. The spirit actually was the forces that drive us towards grand gestures in the world, and the fire within, I guess you could call it. That again is a divided self. Didn't sit with me. Didn't resonate with me. Coming all the way forward to today, in looking into the field of psychology, we have a dominant mode of thinking is Freudian, and Sigmund Freud is largely thought of as the father of psychology, modern psychology. And Freud described the self as being the ego, the force of personal needs, the superego, the force of the larger societal communal needs, and the id, which is libidinal energy, the sexual forces, which I guess you could relate to Plato's appetite, Socrates' appetite. So again, all of these are models for self that describe self in divided terms. And in the moment when I was sitting meditating 3 years ago, none of that sat with me. And that morning I was doing my normal routine, sitting in the energy of questioning, feeling very dejected and lost, and energetically asking the question, what is all this? And all of a sudden, it happened. There was I'll call it a moment of grand insight, or a grand epiphany. To me, that's what it seems like. I'm not religious. I think in that moment, if I was religious, I would be describing this in religion terms, seeing God or something like that. But I'm not. That's not who I am. I am describing this in my own terms, which would be, well, I'll give you what I saw. I was sitting there quietly, and all of a sudden flashed into my visual field. My eyes were closed, and this was in my mind's eye. An orb, a floating orb in blackness, in an infinite blackness. And at the core of this orb, it was a translucent object that at its core had a point of infinite dense light that shone out through the orb. Within the orb, there were layers that were not solid, that had an amorphous sense to them, and all of it was encapsulated by an outer sphere which the light shone through. I'll leave it at that. As soon as it popped in there, everything changed. It's like all of that deep questioning energy had been resolved. That I was home, or that I had found the answer I was seeking. My eyes shot open, and my rational mind grasped for words to describe to my rational self what had just occurred, yet there were no words. My mind was speechless. It was just this deep, profound sense of awe that the question had been answered, that I had intuitively arrived at a place where I knew, yet the outer world hadn't changed yet, only the inner world had. This was not a rational understanding, this was an intuitive understanding. And so since then, I've been taking notes, continuing the meditation, sitting with this. I've reread many of the books that I was reading up until that point, and a validation for all of this, and a further validation for all of this, was simply that all of the books that I was reading, or continued to read, I heard them in a different way. And so it just became so deeply installed in me that this was something that was extremely profound and life-changing, and and I needed to make sense of it. Okay, so this is now 3 years later. I have an immense amount of notes and insights that are all jumbled and disorganized. But I now have a model for describing all of this. The name that I have for that object is the planetary self. And when I say the planetary self, it's important to think of not as me describing as all of us are one. However, you could interpret it that way, but that's not how it's meant. The origin of the word planet is a wanderer, a separate entity wandering around. And it comes from ancient astrologers looking at the sky and seeing the planets wandering around because they don't stay stationary in the sky. And so that's what a planet is. It's a wanderer. I am going to be writing a book. I've started it. I am writing a book. And I need to show you what this all means to me. And I can't wait to bring you all along on this journey. It's going to take me some time to develop my creative skills and start to put this all out into the world. But it's amazing, and I cannot wait to show it to you. What I have is a model for describing the energetic mechanics that exist within all of us. A way of what I see as being a relatively simple way of reflecting on any situation that you might be in, whether that be you in conflict with something else, other people being in conflict, or just simply interacting with each other. And it is so powerful and so unique and simple that it needs to get out into the world. And again, I can't wait to share it with you. So please come along with me on the ride. I've recently left my job. I have a pretty good nest egg. I'm going to be spending the next little while developing this and diving into creative work. I am looking for support. I've opened up a Patreon account, and I'm hoping that people in the world will be interested in supporting me and helping me along this journey. At some point soon, I will have to go back to work because the savings will be running out. But my overall goal would be to have support enough from the world in order to allow me to really invest all of my time in this endeavor. So I can't wait to share it with you. And thank you so much for listening to me today. And stay with me. It's going to be amazing. I can't wait.